Are we live? Okay. Cool, cool, cool. Hello, people. We'll see if people are beginning to join us. Oh, I don't need to stand up. Yay. Hello, people. Ferdy is giving me a little rundown on who has joined the class so far. This is about to soon be a flex 45 minutes. We can even extend the Shavasana a bit. We'll see. I put that on my Instagram this morning, telling about the prop that you will need for class today is like as the last couple of weeks, a proper shower towel to roll up firm, or if you have a firm blanket to roll up instead, or if you have a yoga block, either of those three are kind of like going to do the same purpose. Or fill the same purpose. We have two pets in where we're teaching today. We have our studio dog. He's visiting us today. Scott is here. And then we have a housefly as well. In case you see me acting very weird with my hair, then you know that the housefly came a bit too close for my liking. Okay. Most of you, I hope, know it by now. My name is Camilla, and this is, as said, Flex, sort of, 45. Thank you so much for joining our live broadcast here at Yogaground. We miss you. Teaching online is awesome and cool and nice, but it's so much nicer to teach when you are actually present and we get to see you. So just know that we miss you, but we are happy that we can fill some kind of little void or gap until we get to hang together again. So, okay, let's do this. Anything particular I should tell about before we get started? No. Oh, yes. No, good. Freddie was reminding me about the music. Just like I told about the props, I also put on my Instagram today, I shared a playlist if you want to listen to music while we're doing it. I have a number of public playlists. They are under Camilla Bonicel Yoga. And I recommended the one which is Yin 9 for today. I'm not sure why number 9. Yogaground also has public playlists, especially for flex. Or if you're in the mood for, I don't know, something else crazy. Exactly. Like my husband, he loves doing stuff with metal music in the background. Maybe you want to try that. Can be a new thing, who knows? In the US, they do all crazy stuff with that. They do metal yoga. Okay, we're not going to do that as far as I know here. First pose today is going to be down on the back. I'm just checking my poses. No particular compensation or changes if you are pregnant. Basically, all the poses are going to be working fine, but as always, pregnant or not, injury or not, modify the practice to what suits you and what feels good in your body. Remember that any amount of the pose is still the pose. Let's get into it. So the first pose is where you will also actually need the towel or the blanket or the block, whatever you went for, out to the side. So down on your back, feet into the mat, knees bent, and move your butt towards the left and allow your knees to drop down towards the right. And keeping your nose up towards the ceiling, draw your arms into a cactus, meaning simply bend your elbows into about a 90-degree angle, if it feels nice. Sometimes people, you students, enjoy and prefer to have the arms straight out from the body. Whichever feels like a good option for you, please take that option. A few heavy breathings into the microphone so that you remember to breathe. and that you remember to release. Everything from releasing the exhale to not hold it in. But also that reminder to release tension. Flex yoga, yin yoga. It's the yoga where we want to soften the muscles, to release the tension, the activation of the muscles. So that we get to practice and target the area of the joints. So a twist like this, there has a few target areas. I want you to focus first on the opening of the chest. Maybe both of your shoulder blades are into the floor, maybe not, but opening the chest, allowing the shoulders to relax and soften. And the second area to focus your attention towards is the lower part of your spine, the lower back. You are halfway through the hold. Maybe you want to deepen the twist a bit more to really feel it for your lower back. Again, for me, I've started playing with just kind of extending the top leg out to the side. Now that there's no annoying other student next to you, being in that space, you can just enjoy having space. You can extend the arms and just claim your space. It's yours. It's always there for you, even though and when we practice in a more crowded environment. But the space for you to take, it's always there. Whenever you feel that you want to open your mouth and exhale out through the mouth, feel free to take that option. And just do this check-in with yourself. As you're laying here in our first pose, how are you doing today? Three more rounds of breath. Once your third is completed, begin to make your way back to that starting position. Allow it to take a bit of time. There's no rush to get into the pose on the second side. We have time. Move the whatever prop that you have over towards the other side. And once the feet are back onto the floor, move the butt towards the right side and allow the knees to drop towards the left side. Once the knees are down, supported by something, because we're not looking for the knees to come down towards the floor. Often when the knees come down to the floor, the opening or the openness in the chest is reduced or limited or restricted. So again, make this pose to be about the opening in the chest as your prime focus. And then ask yourself, how are you doing? Normally when you come to the studio, this is one of the questions I ask you. How are you doing today? What's going on in your body today? How is it feeling in your body today? Anything going on? And I listen to your answer, but I also look for the answer. I look to see how you're moving, how you're walking, how your posture is, which tells a lot. And now I can't see you. So it's even more important that you kind of do that check-in. How are you doing? How are you handling this situation? I was telling before we started recording, or going live rather, that finally, what are we on, week 5 or something of this lockdown, I am beginning to soften. I'm beginning to pause. Halfway through the hold. Maybe you want to see if you can target that area of your lower back a bit more. Maybe not. Maybe the arms extend a bit more to the sides. Maybe you find the shoulder blades a bit more properly onto the floor. Maybe you pull the chin a bit more down towards the chest to really just lengthen in your neck. But that's all physical. You come to my classes often enough. You know that for me, yoga is not just about the physical aspect. Yoga is not just about having a flexible body, but having this flexible mind. And I felt lately that my mind has not been so flexible, perhaps, as I would have wanted, as I wished. But now I had really good pep talk last week with friends. We're a little group of teacher friends who meet, well, now we meet online, but to support each other, where we can talk openly about our struggles. And it was just nice to find a bit of support, to get a bit of advice. Begin to move out from your twist. Take your time. If it feels nice, before we come to a seated position, maybe just do a few windshield wipers, allowing the knees to drop towards one side and over to the other a few times. And then begin to make your way to a seated position. I always just enjoy to roll over to the side, to take my time to come to a seated position. And of course, always checking the hair. This is one of the downsides for sure with the lockdown. When you have short hair, let's just say, it's not going to work well for long. Okay, enough about my hair. Feet together, knees out wide, butterfly. If your feet are cold, use your blanket, or better yet, have socks on your feet. And as always in butterfly, draw the chin towards the chest and begin to round forward. When you begin to feel a bit of sensation towards your lower back, that's kind of where you can stop the first. So really kind of round your spine, draw the chin in towards the chest, and allow yourself to round the spine. It's not a question about hitting the feet with your head. Instead, we want to, in this pose, round the spine so that you're kind of creating space between each of the vertebrae. Then back to the pose. I saw this quote: practice the pause. When in doubt, pause. When tired, pause. When angry, pause. When stressed, pause. That last one, when stressed, pause. I forgot that. There was no pause really happening. Instead, it was almost this kind of acceleration. Doing as much as possible. Trying to be everywhere and nowhere. Now I'm learning to enjoy the pause. As you pause in this pose, where do you notice it? For me, I'm starting to feel it a bit in the groin and the inner thighs. I begin to feel the pull of gravity. It's not me pushing to come deeper into the pose. It's gravity gently pulling me a bit deeper as the body softens. There's a bit of tension. Let's go. Again, the goal here is not to be able to place the head on the feet. It's about rounding the spine. It's about pausing. About not doing. Simply breathing. Simply being in this pose. How does it feel being in this pose? Taking about 5 more rounds of breath. Once your 5 rounds of breath are completed, slowly, maybe with the use of the hands pressing into the floor, into the mat, helps you to come up. And just like when you were down on the back, maybe it feels nice to do a few windshield wipers with your legs. I hope you allowed yourself a proper pause in the Easter weekend. Maybe also a little pause in between eating all the chocolate during the Easter weekend. Feels like that is otherwise a non-stop kind of a thing during Easter. Eating chocolate. And back home we're eating tons of eggs. I don't think we're too weird on that though. Everyone seems to be doing that. Okay, from the windshield wipers, hands and knees. And in this pose, bending one arm to place your forehead on that arm, and the other hand, which is the target area. It's going to be on top of the shoulder and also kind of in the armpit. I like to actually turn my head, so I'm turning away from that straight arm. And for me, it doesn't work to have my arm straight forward. Instead, I have that straight arm a bit more out to the side to give my shoulder joint a bit more, I don't know, room maybe. I don't want to have that pinching sensation. Every once in a while in class I talk about compression. Compression can be bone meeting bone, which is quite often it doesn't feel so much, other than it just feels very stuck. And then we have the compression where flesh meets bone, and that happens a bit in my shoulder joint in this pose. And then we need to just create a bit more room. Compression is not bad, but when it's painful, it's something we need to just modify from. So really allowing yourself to sink down into that shoulder joint, into the armpit on the straight arm. You have about 1 more minute in the pose. 1 more minute to pause. I hope you allow yourself time to pause in this different time that we're all facing right now. I hope that you have been a bit more clever than I was, or that you realized it a bit sooner. Just pausing. Maybe not just running faster. With your next inhale, kind of just backing out of the pose. If it works for you to sit back on your heels, maybe just sit back on your heels. And I would invite you to close the eyes if they opened, and just allow a bit of movement for that arm that you just worked with. Maybe you do small circles. Maybe you do only half circles. Maybe you sweep the arm around you. Maybe you move the head and the shoulder a bit. If it feels nice. It's like allow yourself to trust your instincts. What feels good for that joint. Then coming for the second side. So this time, obviously, the other arm straightens. And you lean your forehead towards the forearm to come into the pose on the second side. Create as much space as you need for the arm, or rather for the shoulder. You want to feel that you can relax both into the armpit, but also on the opposite side of the armpit, like on the back side of the shoulder, or top of the shoulder, or whatever feels like a good description. I hear from a lot of people right now, students, other teachers, friends here, friends in France, friends in back home in Sweden. There's a lot of struggle right now to find our way in this current situation. It's a lot of struggle. There's a bit of fear. Fear for the future, fear for financing, of course. Fear for the world, what's happening. How much longer do we need to be in this context? But maybe allowing ourselves to take a step back from that. To not let fear have too much space in our heads and in our hearts and our gut. Instead, practice the pause. Practice to, or learn to enjoy the moment, this moment. There are a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of things that we can't really do anything about, but we can practice. We can learn to enjoy here and now. We can practice the pause. And coming out of the pose, same thing as on the first side. Coming to sit on your heels. Keeping the eyes closed if it feels okay. Maybe moving just the head, maybe moving just the shoulder, maybe moving the arm. You don't need to do what you just did on the first side. Maybe this side needs something different. What feels good? Avoid what feels like shit, please. And then, when you feel ready, coming down to your back again. So this pose, I know, is a bit of a struggle. Sometimes I come around and offer straps in this pose, but I'm going to give another option today if the pose that I'm taking doesn't fully work. But legs up into the air, right leg on top of the left one, and bending the knees. So there's like hardly any space, if at all, any space between the thighs. The ankles are out to the sides, and the left hand grabs hold of the right ankle or shin, and opposite on the other side. So right hand holding onto the left leg. Target area, right leg is the closest to the chest, and the target area is the right buttock. So if this works for you, awesome. I feel a lot in this pose, just saying. That's in my body. But I know that sometimes the ratio for the arm to reach the left leg in this case isn't always there. See if you can then actually place the left foot onto the floor, kind of in that same direction. So placing the left foot onto the floor, but kind of towards the right side of the mat. Then I'm pulling the top leg a bit more to the side. This gives me the same sensation in this area as when I'm holding my two legs. So depending on what works for you, take that option. Sitting down a lot, which we tend to do when we are working from home. It kind of makes that this area feels quite stuck. And we feel quite a lot of sensation when stretching that area. So the stretch is up towards the buttock, towards the lower back, almost even, at least for me. You have about 1 more minute in the hold. And if you have the other foot onto the floor, allow yourself to be a bit creative. How can you move your legs to the point where you feel sensation on that right buttock? It's like moving into the pose, finding the stillness, finding the softness, finding the pause. Three more rounds of breath. Once your 3 rounds of breath are completed, we're heading straight in it for the second side. So legs up to the ceiling and draw that left leg on top of the right leg instead and begin to bend your knees. This time the right hand grabs hold of the left shin or ankle and see if your left hand can hold on towards your right leg. Allow yourself to experiment if it feels better in your body to allow that back leg, the right leg, to put the foot onto the floor, or if it feels okay to hold onto the shin or the ankle. Try to not hold the foot, as you tend to just kind of work on the joint in the ankle joint. Sometimes, depending on to where the knees are being drawn, kind of towards which shoulder, it also gives different sensation in the area. As you practice with your eyes closed, check in with yourself. How are you doing? The cool thing about being home so much as we are now all told to be, is that we also have all this time to do things a bit different. You can create a bit more pause in your everyday between your working hours. You can do a little breathing pause. You can do a little movement pause. After lunch, maybe you do like my husband and you do a little nap on the sofa. Of course, if his colleagues are listening to this, he's still productive and doing his job, believe you me. But pausing. Maybe you take a little lunch walk. Pausing, breathing, lifting the face towards the sun when it's out. You're on the last minute. Pausing is, in my opinion, clearly undervalued. But I'm beginning to learn to appreciate it, to enjoy it. I still maybe need to work a tiny bit on finding the pause when I get angry, to really pause and not give in to the anger. But we all need to have something to work on, right? Take 3 more rounds of breath. And once they are completed, untangle your legs. Maybe it feels nice to hug your knees in towards the chest. Maybe it feels nice to straighten and bend your legs a few times. Maybe even as you straighten, you flex your feet. And when you bend the legs, you point your feet. Maybe you want to do a few of the windshield wipers that we've done a few times during the practice. Just creating a bit of movement before the last pose before Shavasana. This is one of my favorite poses. So for this pose, you will need to come up enough to grab your blanket, your towel, your block. And I kind of like to be up on my elbows to wiggle this one in, making sure I'm not sitting on the wire too much. So the whatever prop you have goes directly under behind your heart. So you're kind of resting your shoulder blades on it. And then here you can extend your legs and straighten them. I like this option. And then decide what feels good with your arms. Maybe you do like before, straight out to the sides. Maybe you do cactus. Or maybe even straight up from the beginning. It feels nice to draw the arms above head. I like to have a good bend in my shoulder joint and in my elbows, kind of resting one hand in the other. Focus your breath towards your heart, towards your rib cage. See if you can deepen your breath if you can deepen your pause. Maybe when you breathe, you can find the pause in your breath. So that when you first have your inhale, filling your lungs with air, and then you find a pause. At the top of that inhale, a little pause before you exhale the air out. And once you've exhaled your air out, maybe there's a little pause again before the inhale begins. So that each breath consists of these 4 parts. An inhale, a pause where no more air is coming in, no air is going out, and then the exhale, where you empty the lungs. And at the bottom of the exhale, before the inhale, no air goes out, no air comes in, there's the pause. And then it all begins again. Inhale, a new pause, a proper exhale, a pause, before it all begins again. Practice the pause. Don't push the pause. Don't hold that pause longer than what feels enjoyable. You have about 1 more minute in this awesome pose. This is such a brilliant pose for our posture. Shoulders are moving away from the front of our body towards the more proper position. The chest can open fully and have all that space for the lungs to fill with air. If you are completely enjoying where you are, feel free to pause longer in this pose. There's no need to come to the traditional Shavasana shape. If you enjoy this one, feel free to stay. Otherwise, if you're not completely enjoying it, then simply roll to the side so that you can remove what you had underneath. And take your more traditional shape for Shavasana. The traditional shape for Shavasana being down on your back. As I wrote in the invitation today, maybe you have a little eye pillow that you place neatly, nicely on your eyes, or something else that makes it a bit dark. Allow your body to be heavy. Allow your chest to just move with your breath. Allow the entire backside of your body to just be heavy down towards the floor. Grounding you, supporting you. holding you as you pause. Practice the pause. When in doubt, pause. When tired, pause. When angry, pause. When stressed, pause. Learn to enjoy the pause. Stay for as long as you want in your Shavasana, in your pause. When you are ready, when your practice is finished, roll to the side. Find a seated position. Maybe you stay seated, pausing. When you feel that your practice is coming to its end, bring your hands together in front of the heart. Thank yourself for your pause. Namaste.